ever have that happen at a gig?
Yes.
In the middle of a song, you can't do anything about it.
And then you're like this.
You're just hunched over playing. It's like, I gotta get through this song. It's just me.
Just give it.
I don't have a tech that can run out and fix it mid-song. Because I know people will do that in like full band situations when they actually have techs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, it's February.
It is February.
And it is Black History Month, even though for some reason Google Calendar took off.
Let's not get into that. Let's not get into that.
That's so dumb. I was like, what?
We're not going to get into that.
Okay. It's still Black History Month, though.
It's also the Gulf of America on Apple Maps now, so.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I clicked on it and said, this is wrong, and then asked what it should be, and I put Gulf of Mexico. So.
I also kept, like, seeing just people writing random things on it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all I've seen, so I didn't know it was, like, actually changed, and that's why they're doing it.
It's not actually changed.
No, I know.
But some people like to think it is.
But yes, happy Black History Month. We're still going to celebrate it because it deserves to be celebrated.
Right. Yes.
And so I have a couple different topic ideas. I almost texted you last night and was like, should I do this or this? And then I was like, no, because the whole point was like to surprise Katie with content.
Surprise.
Yeah. You know, we'll spice up the life here, you know? And so originally I was going to do a deep dive into Beyonce and why the Cowboy Carter, what it did for country music and all this stuff. And I couldn't really find like scholarly articles that like had a deep dive into like its social impact. Then I thought about Kendrick because he just did the Super Bowl performance, which we can also talk about before we get into the topic today too. So did you watch it?
I did. I watched Tubi let you like stream the Super Bowl. So I was like, okay, I have a legitimate source for this one since I had a sketchy source for the Grammys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched it. Since I'm not familiar with his music, I feel like, I don't know, I'm such a like visual person that I was like, I wish I could have lyrics to read so I could fully like comprehend what's happening. But I like his use of the whole field and the whole like player,
the console.
Gamer console, and all that. Because I feel like a lot of people don't use the full. They use the full field if they have like a huge amount of dancers taking it up, but they themselves don't move around the entire field. So I liked that because I thought that was different.
So here's my thing. I was so excited to see it. I love Kendrick's music. But other than that, I was vibing to the music, but I wanted it to just be the best performance I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I still think Rihanna and Usher did it better.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that because I know a lot of people loved it. And it wasn't because I was like old and out of touch with things, because I know some people were just like, oh, well, I can't understand what he's saying. I love Kendrick's music. I was vibing the whole time. I was singing along. When Mustard came out, I was like living for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And SZA was amazing.
Yeah. But I think I was expecting more guest appearances. I expected
more guests, and so that threw me off. And when I didn't get a whole bunch of guests, I was a little underwhelmed, which I know is stupid, but like I expected a whole bunch of people because he has a bunch of songs. I didn't realize that was Serena Williams for some reason until after the fact.
It took me until people were posting about it because I was like, that's someone, but I can't figure out who in my brain.
My brain just didn't connect that was Serena Williams. But after that, I was like, okay, that was a great moment. And Mustard coming out was a great moment. I did not get the game console thing until I saw an article. I was like, I know I'm going to need a bunch of people to
I need someone to break it down
all of it because I just missed a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't know if and I know that was probably on purpose, just the way that they filmed it. It just like kind of, things rushed together so much that like I just didn't get it. The funny part when he did Not Like Us, like I was all for that too. But I really thought he was going to make just like especially because he started with the like, this is the revolution, and so I really thought he was going to go off the deep end. So then when it was kind of like more subtle and undertoned, that was why I think I was a little disappointed, because I really thought he was just about to like go off, and I was here for it. There was definitely obviously the symbolism and stuff like that, and like so I got all of that stuff, but it reminded me very much of Rihanna's performance, and like the costumings.
Okay.
And I think that was why it was a little underwhelming for me too. I don't know. I just wanted it. I wanted to love it so much, but it just didn't hit the way that I thought it was gonna hit.
Yeah.
It was good. Like, I don't think it was a bad performance by any means. And the more I see it and rewatch it, I like it even more. Yeah. But like that initial showing was like,
I think it was very smooth transitions through songs and stuff like that, but because of the not having as many special guest appearances as we kind of were thinking there would be, there wasn't as much like dynamic change. So there wasn't like super high points and then like more like not low points, but like.
But that's also his music. He doesn't have like a lot of like slow songs. Like, it's obviously a very like high energy rap performance. I did like that he played a little bit of Luther. I was excited that was what SZA came out to. I was like, oh yes. And he played all like, I mean, there was a couple others that I wish he would have.
Can SZA do Taylor's part to do Bad Blood or something, or just like have
I didn't even
literally
care
just
that
the one line, the one line that people do during the Eras tour and like shout back at Taylor, like if he just somehow randomly put that in.
I didn't even care that like all of that stuff wasn't in it. Like honestly, I was like, okay, like I just wanted Kendrick, so like for me, like that was fine. But yeah, I don't know, like it just didn't like wow me, and maybe it was just because it was so on par with the last two that like maybe it was just so good, like it was just on par with the last couple, like in that sense, and it just didn't like blow me out of the water the way if it was it felt like I was at one of his concerts and like it was a really good concert, but it wasn't like Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
If that, like as big as the Super Bowl. And I think he's done bigger performances at like the other Super Bowl that he performed at. So
when was that?
Or maybe it was the Grammy performance, but
I don't know.
I think he was a guest on
I was like,
a couple of years
was
ago.
he a guest with?
Yeah.
But I don't have any other thoughts. It's like I thought I did, but nope.
But gone. The Eagles fucking won, so ha, bitches.
That wasn't much of a game, though.
Yes, it was. It was a fantastic game. So
it's not as fun when one team just like dings up
and cheering. They played like shit.
I know. That's why I was like,
garbage.
It's more entertaining.
Like, what are you doing?
It's more entertaining when it's like a close game, and it wasn't.
It's never a close game. It's the Super Bowl. That's how it goes.
I feel like it's usually a close game.
No, it's always so low scoring. I was like, and then they were just like, oh, you can have a couple points. Here you go at the end. And I was like, ha, 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 I love it.
Someone was like, hey, they got 22 points. Taylor did her job. I'm like, what? No.
Yeah, people need to get over the whole Taylor Swift stuff, honestly. I'm just like, I'm over it. Like, she's there to support her boyfriend. Just let her be there. It really wasn't a big deal. Like, so stupid.
Yeah, there's like a picture of her with her eyes are like super wide, and I was like, this is a new meme. I'm saving this on my phone.
But definitely, Travis, I win that jumpsuit. Like you could tell, like there was no doubt. I think the Chiefs very overconfidently thought they were gonna win that game. So they ha. Okay. Anywho,
okay.
Also before we get into today's topic, just because I don't know exactly how long we're gonna talk about it, but some new music came out recently. I wanted to shout out. Did we ever talk about Lou's album?
EP?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It's so good. I'm like so in love with it. I love like.
I didn't realize her tour was like over already. Like it was the last weekend of tour, and I was watching her, the stories that she was sharing of being tagged, and I was like, this is cool. I like this.
If she ever wants some of those songs that she knows is never gonna get play, I would love to take a look at her catalog and record some of her songs. Like, it's so like. I love her writing so much. So shout out that. And then Sabrina Carpenter did her deluxe album with Dolly Parton.
Some people are hating on Dolly, and I'm like, if you're hating on Dolly, you don't understand who. It's like you've never heard of her before, or at least not heard her sing, because they're acting like. People were like, it sounds like AI. I'm like, no, that's how she sounds.
A lot of people were very weird about that. And I saw a TikTok that was like, I think this is just AI. But people are like, also, if you think it's AI, like, you don't know Dolly Parton's sense of humor. Like, this is so her. So I was just like, it didn't make any, like, and a lot of, honestly, those songs on the deluxe album of that
sounds
version
more
are
country.
so country.
It's like, okay.
That album
Okay.
is so country all of a sudden. So I'm like, it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense
And
with
people
like,
are just like insistent upon like, no, she should have been on Slim Pickens, but like I know I did it, but I'm not the only one. There was other people when Please 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 came out that were like, let's make a country version on TikTok. So like it has undertones, and her vocals do sound Dolly-esque in that song as well.
yeah.
So
Sabrina is definitely, I think, with this deluxe album and with Dolly being on that song, has really shown that like it really is all in production sometimes of how your songs are produced, because that whole album could have been, and it sounded very early because I was listening to, oh gosh, what was it? It was one of the deluxe songs. It was like either Busy Woman or like, I think it was Busy Woman, but it sounds exactly like early Casey Musgraves. Like her second album, like Mind Your Own Biscuits and like that era of her.
I've only listened to each one once, other than Please Please Please, so I can't remember.
Yeah,
but
no.
I feel like that makes sense.
But it's very early Casey Musgraves. So it's very, again, it's just really all in production, because like she could easily be a country artist, but she's not. So like it's just very interesting, this whole genre thing, and I just want to do a deep dive on genres one day, because it's just like they're so crazy just how people interpret a lot of stuff, which is also what led me to the whole Beyonce thing in the country, because I like looked up the definition for like what is, and I'll probably do a deep dive on all this stuff too. I just didn't think that it was today's topic, because I was like, oh, it's History Month. So, and I got down this big rabbit hole, and I'll get into the topic here soon. So I went down that instead and was like, this is more interesting for this specific topic, I think. But I'll still do a whole deep dive on the whole Beyonce thing, because I like looked up the definition of what is country music, and like, just because everyone's like, I don't think it's that. I just think it's all in how we perceive things, and not entirely like based in like cold hard fact. And music is so subjective that it's really that in a nutshell.
No, I have a third thing. I was like, I had two things I'm trying to like remember, and then I have a third. I love that they did a music video for Dolly and Sabrina, and it's so cute. And I saw like a video of when they first met, and they're like, we're the same height, and it was so cute. And then also you mentioned the Casey thing. I keep forgetting to like tell you, it didn't have to be in the pod, but like I think it's Bless Your Heart on Megan Maroney's deluxe album. It sounds like Step Off in the background, like Casey Musgraves' Step Off.
Oh.
And there's something in Megan's bridge about glass houses, and like the first line of Step Off is like, you sure look real pretty in your glass house. So I was like, is that on purpose? Was there some sort of like inspiration from this when writing the song, or at least when producing it? Third thing. What was the third thing? Oh, yeah, with just like the definition of country and stuff. Like I just did answered like some interview questions for single promo, and one of them was like, what's your thoughts on the state of country music right now? And I just talked about how I love that there's different pockets of country, because I think country is very much just like, there's straight down the middle country, but there's also like the 90s country like Zach Top, and then there's country rock and country pop. It's all over the place. And so like anyone can find an area of country, I think, that they would like, and they just have to find what resonates with them. And yeah, so country is just all over the place, and I think that's part of the, I guess, the issue of when people are like, oh, that's not country, or yes it is, and stuff. Is just people don't have a clear definition of what country is, because there's so many different like subgenres within it. So yeah, those were my three things. I don't know what that was. That's my hand.
But it's getting into today's topic, I have two historical figures that I'm going to be talking about today.
Okay.
The first one is George W. Johnson, who was the first commercially recorded African American.
Okay.
So I'm kind of just going to give a brief history and like his impact on things. And then I have the first black superstar, Mamie Smith.
Okay.
So, George W. Johnson was really lost in history, as um, during this time, obviously, it was the late 1800s, and so it was very racial time in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of push even after he found success, that like they were still like pushing white artists over black artists. And so he kind of got erased after some like changes had been made to better African American lifestyle here in the US, which obviously doesn't, I mean, they're still fighting today to make changes, but it was like the first step towards anything happening to like desegregate the country and everything like that. So George W. Johnson was born in Loudoun County, Virginia. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. In 1846, to a 15-year-old father and a 13-year-old mother. He was 13.
Wait, hang on. Say that again.
His father was 15 and his mother was 13. They were both slaves.
I guess it's the 1800s, so
Yeah.
like timing for families and stuff is different, and
And they were both slaves. He was born into slavery directly.
and there's no birth control at that time too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like
Yeah. And his owner was a farmer, but he was taken inside the house to live with the farmer's playmate for him. So he got to play, and then he was always very talented at a young age, singing around the house. He moved to New York City in the 1970s after being freed, where he would sing on the streets and make money.
1870s?
Yeah.
You said 1970s.
Oh, sorry, 1870s.
I was like, wait, hold on.
Yes, 1870s, where he would whistle tunes of the time on the street, which became his like road to fame, was his iconic whistle. Like I said, it was still a very segregated time in the United States, so he would sing and whistle songs that were primarily used to mock the black community, but they were the only songs that were really being pressed out to the public, so he would sing and whistle them. But that caused a lot of embarrassment for him and tension with him within himself in the black community, because, like I said, they were songs that weren't friendly towards the community. His whistle was so distinct and identifiable that it made it very easy to transfer onto early recording technology. So in 1890, he recorded his first song with Victor Emerson of the New Jersey Phonograph Company. So at the time, they weren't using records, but they were using phonographs to record things, which were these little wax bronze cylinders that somebody would sing directly into, as we talked about the Grammys and the gramophone.
Yeah.
They would sing directly into that cone shape, and then it would be recorded on like the wax of the cylinder as it got spun as little dots. And then when you put it into play, it would like a piano kind of, it would like ting on the dots, like these little brass things. It's very interesting how it got recorded and how that technology worked. In sound recording class at Belmont, we like actively like watched it and like had one, and he would like actually played it.
Okay.
But
I don't think we did that in my class.
Yeah, but the whistle was so iconic that it made it very easy for those notes to pick up on the cylinders. So he recorded, this company was very different than most commercial companies at the times, because they weren't trying to make a commercial profit off of it necessarily. So this was like a more experimental kind of sound. So he was asked to sing a song called The Whistling Coon, and featured his signature whistle. But Tim Brooks, who is the author of Lost Sounds, Blacks in the Birth of the Recording Industry, who is the main person, that was the book that he wrote, and it takes a lot of like this time period and early sounds in African American recordings, and he is the one who kind of dug up George W. Johnson and his whole life, and is one of his main biographers, because like I said, a lot of his history kind of got wiped out of the recording industry. So he brought a lot of this to light. But what was so special about him was that about Johnson was that he was able to recreate the experience of a street singer. His speech was kind of slurred, His voice was sharp and penetrating, and his whistles were sharp and penetrating, of course. And most singers in these days were very formal and very much note by note for the music. So he applied a lot of his uniqueness in a way that made it very relatable for others of the Black community, and it made record companies kind of rethink how they thought the general population would like react, because they really only thought that white Americans were the ones buying it. But with the success of his phonographs being reproduced, it allowed for them to kind of open up their minds to the fact that others would want to hear other people singing about their own stories.
Yeah.
And so these songs were white artists and white songwriters who wrote them talking about the Black experience, but they obviously had no connection to it. So George W. Johnson was able to give authenticity to these stylized songs that were about his own experience, and then allowed for that community to feel a connection to it. And it allowed for record companies to kind of like remove the racism within it a little bit. Obviously there was still a long way to go before that completely ended, but it allowed them to be to kind of open up to the idea of getting Black artists a chance.
Yeah.
After that recording, though, he followed it with the Laughing Song, which was his like hit song. Like this was his song he was most known for. And it included his distinct laugh. And I listened to it, and he like laughs on the beat.
Okay.
It's so interesting. In an 1898 issue of the Phonoscope, it was described that Johnson used his race to suggest an authenticity to these songs that were written in a very racist genre, and used a lot of stereotypes about the Black community. It was also written that he was the only colored man who achieved distinction in making records for talking machines. So he was the only person that started all of this. He sold anywhere from 38,000 to 50,000 recordings of his two songs and appeared in label catalogs for the next 20 years. And unfortunately, success during this time didn't make for a lasting career, as the industry was still pushing white musicians and singers, like I said. And eventually he was edged out in favor of vaudeville artists to take over. And he died in January 23, 1914 in Queens, New York.
Okay.
So he was like one of the first people to do this, and it really opened up a way for Black musicians at the time. So it was of note. And it also open the door for Mamie Smith. It was considered the first Black superstar, but she was the first blues singer. So she was born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1883. And it was believed that she was born Mamie Robinson, but there's not a lot known about her early years. It's not well documented around this time. But by age 10, she was working as a vaudeville performer and touring with the Four Dancing Mitchells. In 1913, at 20 years old, she was working in Harlem, New York, and was married to William Smithy Smith. Yes.
Smithy Smith.
Smithy. I guess his nickname was Smithy.
Okay.
Yeah. Smithy Smith.
Okay, that's just a nickname.
And that's how she got her last name, obviously. Again, there's not a lot around that time. It really started when she started performing in vaudeville, is like where her career started. So that was like when early documentations of her became known. But in 1918, she performed at the Lincoln Theater and was cast in The Maid of Harlem. It was also reported that it might be Made in Harlem. So there was some different variations of it.
Gotcha.
But it was a musical revue performed by Perry Bradford. Written by Perry Bradford, who was a songwriter at the time. In 1920, Bradford wanted to record some of his songs on the phonograph, and so he brought Mamie in to record at OK Studios in New York City. They recorded two songs, sorry. The first one was That Thing Called Love and You Can't Keep a Good Man Down. And after that, they returned to the studio in August of that year, so it was February that they recorded those, and then back in August 1920, they recorded with a group called the Jazz Hounds, which was a group of studio musicians, and they recorded It's Right Here For You and Crazy Blues. And Crazy Blues was the first blues song to ever be recorded. Okay. So she was the first blues artist of the time, not even of the time, but
Of
just in general,
of
and
the
really created the blues genre with that song.
of the world.
Yeah, Crazy Blues was already just like a bigger song for like people that came to the theaters and stuff and would hear that song. And so again, they were recording on those little phonographs, the wax cylinder ones, and it sold about 75,000 copies within the first month of release.
Oh,
Yeah.
month. First month.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I was like, 75,000 just in general is a lot, but then in the
Yeah.
first month, especially because you had to individually record all of the, like, you
Right.
could mass produce them, but like, you still had to, it's not like today where like,
You make copies.
you just make a copy by hitting copy and paste. Like,
Yeah.
you had to sit there and like write it all out, like, still
Yeah.
on those phonographs. And it was, again, she really opened the doors for Black musicians as well, and especially female Black artists and blues singers. And that allowed for the next group of people like Bessie Smith and Billie Holiday in the jazz world. So blues transformed into jazz from there, but it wouldn't have been possible without her. And she's had success following all of this. She toured with the Jazz Hounds and put out a couple more records. I couldn't find those records for some reason, but she put out a couple, and she performed in theaters all over New York and appeared in a couple African American films. And then she died in 1946.
Okay.
So those are my two people.
Those are your two people.
Yeah. Like I said, Tim Brooks, with his book really captured a lot of those stories, and Mamie Smith was just interesting, like, to read about too. So she really opened up a lot of doors, and it wouldn't have been possible for a lot of Black musicians and female singers and the blues world in general to really make a commercial name for itself if it hadn't been for her. So, so it was just really interesting, I thought.
I can't think of. I've heard of her, and I know I've heard of her based off of some research from a different episode, but I can't place what that episode was.
Really?
I'm trying to think of if it would have been for Women's History last March, or if it was like a Christmas song or something. Like, I think she appeared on some sort of list of sorts for something, but I feel like it was podcast related, and I just can't remember what it was, if it was like a song or why she was popping up on something. So, yeah, it's bothering me that I can't think of it.
I really wanted to do like big deep dives, but again, during this time, it was just not a lot was written down for these people.
It's like the 1800s, so
yeah,
or early 1900s too.
Yeah,
but yeah, this is gonna be really random, but I was trying to look up with I think it was because we were talking about passports or something with Sarah and like immigration things of when certain, was it with, I'm sorry, I'm not completing sentences.
If you mentioned in Italy, you can still like register for citizenship if you have a grandparent that like on your mother's side or something like that. That you have to have a certain lineage that's like recent enough that it still counts for citizenship as a descendant of it. And
so I was like so we were looking up my ancestry. Well, it was based off of that, but then I was looking up more this past weekend of I was trying to figure out where in my like great grandparents, like where it was that they were born in Ireland and when they like came to America, and trying to figure out if it lined up with the Irish potato famine and stuff, just because I was curious with if that had anything to do with it. And I think it might have with the lining up of it, but it's just from looking that up, I was trying to get more details of when they came to America and just trying to find records and stuff. And maybe there would have been if I like pay for ancestry.com, but I just have the free account and it's whatever's like already on there from my great aunt's done a lot of the research on my dad's side of the family. But yeah, just 1800s doesn't have much for records. It's like harder to find details for things.
Yeah.
So Yeah, that was a lot of explanation just to get to that point. But yeah, I've recently tried to look into 1800s records for things and it's hard to get stuff. So, like you mentioned, you're like, I'm going to surprise you with what we do. So, I didn't know what you would cover. But you mentioned Beyonce earlier. So, I feel like also mentioning how she's the first, oh God, now I don't know if I'm going to get it right. Is it first female black
She's the
artist
first.
or just black artist period to win country album?
Oh, we talked about that last week on the
Did we?
yeah, on the Grammys episode. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I don't
But she
remember if I
has some
said that
other
or not.
statistics about being on the charts and like being the first. I want to say female to be on the top of the Billboard charts,
So I was trying to think of like Charlie Pride as one before or not.
but
'Cause that's I don't think Darius Rucker's won any. So it would be probably Charlie Pride if anyone else has. So
or Darius.
I just said Darius.
I didn't hear what you said.
I was like,
Sorry.
I don't think he's won anything. So,
Since like the 1960s, though, no one has been at the top of like the Billboard, country and pop charts. I want to say. So Beyonce like had some things like that, which is why which is how it got me into this rabbit hole, was because I found like that, and then it connected to other things, and I was like,
Gotcha.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, but there's some history for you for the day. I know this episode's a little shorter, but that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. I feel like I need a nap.
Okay. Then, with that being said, where can you find us, Katie?
Yes, sorry. I probably didn't need to say that, but did not get much sleep last night with the weather. Anyways, you could find us at the Music Lens Podcast on all the socials. If you have anything you'd like to share with us, you can email us at the musiclenspodcast@gmail.com. You can find Alex at Alex Lager Music on all the socials, and you can find me at Katie Fee Music on all the socials. And Ant's coming to say hello and goodbye as well.
Gremlin Braden. Thanks. Have
See
a
you
good day.
next time.
Bye. I don't even know.